With the console wars heating up, the 32-bit generation tried to get in on our favorite holiday. I am the Game Collector, and this is Second Opinion Games, and today we do a 32-bit Halloween.
Second Opinion Games.
Medieval for the PlayStation 1 introduces us to one of my favorite video game characters of all time, Sir Daniel Fortescue. Now you have to read the instruction manual to get the full backstory here, but basically he was kind of a liar. He claimed to be a super awesome swordsman and a great general, but he was none of that. However, the king of our fair land decided that he should be in charge of our army to wage against this evil wizard who is very powerful. So, luckily for him, his army won the day. Unluckily for him, the very first barrage of arrows that are shot, one lands right through his eye, killing him dead. However, he is the greatest hero of all times because his side won. And you know what? He has a shot to redeem himself against the evil wizard. Now this is very much a Metroidvania-style game, but in a 3D plane. And it's the first time that I think it was done extremely well here, and it's done entirely with a beautiful Halloween theme. Hacking down zombies is excellent. If you happen to lose your sword, then you can rip off your own arm and beat people down with it. But don't worry, you'll pick up plenty of other weapons along your way, and by the time the finale rolls around, you will feel like an undead killing machine. If you don't already have this one, well, shame on you. But it's being remastered for the current generation, and as soon as it comes out, it's pretty much a no-brainer for anyone to play, both retro and modern. One of the things I seem to notice around October is that the Star Wars hype train is in full effect. And what better game to play in this season is Dark Forces. Now this is a first-person Star Wars shooter that takes all of the sound effects from your favorite universe and shoves them into an outdated experience. Now the controls are really wonky and you can't really use analog controls in this one, so things get somewhat weird. But if you like Doom mixed in with a little bit of Star Wars, then this one's for you. And it might even give you some ideas to dress up as Leia this holiday season, which I strongly recommend you do. Unless you're a dude, then don't do it, please. Don't do it.
That blaster's on.
If you prefer your games to have a little bit more story than action, well, Discworld 2 has you covered. After all, it's a point-and-click adventure game, and you could even use the PlayStation 1 mouse with this. But because of the balls in early mouses for consoles, they really stink, you might as well just stick to the regular controller. Now, it is really funny. It takes on a sort of Monty Python feel in the way everyone talks with weird English accents and just hilarious dialogue in general. It also has some kooky lateral thinking puzzles, so if you really think inside the box, then you might want to get a walkthrough. But this one is certainly worth playing, especially around Halloween. After all, death is now dead, so dead people just don't really realize they're dead and now tend to walk around, and all the comedy that can go with that, well, it's just a terrific game from start to finish. But you better play it when you have some serious time to invest in it, because this one is a bit of a slow crawl.
Well, that threw a monkey wrench into the works. No, it's just a turn of phrase. I swear it just slipped out. I in no way intended to pass any sort of derogatory remark about your chosen form. Not here, nor ever.
Now jumping over to the Sega Saturn, we have the game D. And this is an even more slow game. Basically, it's an interactive movie with a couple of puzzle elements. there is a mass shooting at a local hospital, and for some reason the guy's daughter is the only one that they think can save the day. Upon entering the hospital and seeing all the dead bodies, you're warped to another place, like a castle or something, and then you have to go through different puzzles. Now, there's only a 2-hour time limit to beat this game with no pausing, so if you ate at Taco Bell the night before, well, you're gonna regret that game over screen. Also, there are 2 discs here, and if you're used to playing the Dreamcast, well, keep in mind that this is on the Saturn, and the open button is not where the reset button is, so you might be really screwed up when you get to the halfway mark. But the visuals here were stunning for the time. Keep in mind, this came out the same year that Toy Story did, and this was done with an almost no budget, which is pretty impressive in its own right. Also, there doesn't seem to be any real way of dying, but there seems to be tons of jump scares even though. So, if you really like an interactive movie experience, this one will truly have you on the edge of your seat. Mr. Bones for the Saturn is a bit more action-packed, and this is pretty much a required game to play every Halloween for Sega Saturn owners. After all, it is a showpiece of everything that the Sega Saturn can do, and it also shows off a graveyard and skeletons running through them. You could always explode to a whole bunch of pieces and have to pick up your bones, or even explore other worlds. This is an incredible game, and one that will have you pulling your hair out wondering what situation is going to happen next. 1 minute you could be running through that said graveyard, and another moment you could be playing the guitar in front of a ton of skeletons. And there's even a drum solo here too. One of my favorite levels later on in the game is just telling jokes by pressing the right buttons, and I find that pretty hilarious in its own right. But as a musical experience, this game is certainly one that will capture your attention. I wonder if there's any other musical horror games that I could think of. Well, we have Tripped for the 3DO. Now, this is a puzzle game, which is kind of confusing to me. Basically, you have all these different kooky shapes and colors, and you try to place 4 of them in what looks like a block. Then it forms a big block, and then you have to destroy said big block to get to do something else on an opponent's screen. Or if you're playing single player, you could just play for points. Now, there's lots of levels of difficulty, but everyone seems to thrash me every single time with this, so I actually prefer playing against a real human every time. But one of the most fascinating things about this game, other than its insane art style, which by the way, this was made by the same people that made D on the Sega Saturn that I talked about earlier, is the music creation feature. And this is more of an audio-visual experience than anything. And you could actually lay down some sick beats and control all the action on the screen. So this is just a little bit of what I made, and I gotta say, I'm pretty darn good at it. One of the most horrifying games for the 3DO is, of course, Wolfenstein 3D. Now you're fighting your way through the hordes of baddies in World War II. And if you don't think that this is a sufficient game to play around Halloween, well, guess what? These baddies are also zombies some of the time, with guns built right in their chest. And these guys are creepy. You can't just lure them out by firing a couple bullets and letting them come to you. No, they will only attack when they straight up see you. This means that you have to watch your back around corners left and right because they will sneak up on you and kill you. And one of the things about Wolfenstein on the 3DO that really gets me is that they're very stingy with the ammo. That means there's not enough hot lead to go around. So it plays kind of like a survival horror game. Man, this gets frustrating, and I cannot tell you enough of how freaking scary this really is, especially when these zombies come after you. Boy, I wonder if there's any 32-bit consoles I'm missing on this list. Oh yeah, Nintendo had one. Jack Brothers for the Virtual Boy is certainly a game you have to play every Halloween. After all, it takes place on Halloween, and it's about 3 different characters trying to work their way back to the Halloween Town dimension, and you only have so much time to make it back home. I actually talked about this one so many times. That's why I'm speaking my way through it really fast. There's Jack Frost, Jack-o'-lantern, and Jack the Ripper, and basically you just have to kill everything. Or you could put in this secret code and play as the fairy. Now there is some advantages to playing as the fairy in this game. For example, none of the dialogue boxes open up when you enter each level. So if you already played this game quite a bit, then you can just jump into it and work your way through really fast. Also, she's really powerful and she attacks with the power of love. So when you're taking down a giant skull or a vampire, attacking them with love just seems like the natural thing to do after all. This is a terrific game to play every Halloween, but it's not the only game that you should play in Halloween for the Virtual Boy. The Mansion of Ismouse. Now this was a Japanese exclusive that never came out over here. However, there seems to be no language barrier and the Virtual Boy is region free. And this is very much a first-person shooter horror game for your Virtual Boy because you have a gun and you have a house to run through and it's a huge monster maze here. Now you can pick up different orbs that let you see where you're at on the map or maybe where the keys are or maybe where the exit is, and you have a handgun with a couple of clips. Now there are some baddies here that you have to shoot down and you're not exactly the most proficient with a handgun, so lining up your shots can be really tough. And that's where this game becomes a true survival horror game, because you only have so much ammo. If you happen to run out, well, you better turn around and run another direction really fast. It's also what I like about this game, how there's winding paths. So if you're cornered by a baddie, then you could always just go around him. However, sometimes this doesn't work out in your favor. It's also punishingly difficult because of those somewhat stiff controls. Luckily, there's infinite continues, and there's also at least 5 different endings to this game. So if you really like your first-person shooters and your survival horror atmosphere in general, well then this import is certainly the game for you. Overall, all of these 32-bit gems are terrific to play around Halloween, or as I play them, all year long. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it, and I enjoy covering games that other people just don't. So if you have some games that you love and no one else wants to talk about them whatsoever, well, then you've turned to the right guy. Just leave me a comment down below of your favorite games to play around Halloween, or any time of the year for that matter. And as always, I will see you again next time.